Sup guys, Haking here, bringing you a new video regarding Resident Evil 9. I'm going to be going through a lot of posts released by our most famous and most reliable leaker, obviously, Dusk Golem. Note the sarcasm in my voice. But yeah, he's done a lot of posts recently and I thought, you know what, let me go through these. Some of this stuff is interesting to read, but I also want to give my own perspectives and thoughts on it and maybe go through why it's bullshit or maybe possibly it's real. But we'll see. So before I begin, remember to like and subscribe, please. And yeah, let's do this. So before I get further started, I just want to say that yes, August 19, we're getting some reveal for Resident Evil 9. We're getting new footage. So opening night live. That's what the ONL means. Thank you for that, by the way. You know who you are. So yeah, looking forward to that. And then we're going to get more or possibly some of the same at the PAX event between the end of August and beginning of September. And then apparently we're going to get Resident Evil 9 again next at the New York Comic Con in October the 10th at our panel. So Capcom's holding a panel there for a lot of their games, and Resident Evil 9 is going to be part of that. So does that mean we're going to get new footage then? Properly. But you also got to keep in mind Tokyo Game Show is going to be a few weeks before that. So are we going to get something at Tokyo Game Show? Or are we going to get something at October? What's going on? Are we going to get like more reveals on and on? Because like Capcom clearly wants to market this game as much as possible as they can. So maybe we're going to get a lot of trailers for this. Fingers crossed. But yeah, now that we got that out of the way, let's go through all of this stuff because there's a lot to go through here. Like, it's crazy. Like, I've not really seen Dusk post so much in such a short amount of time before. So, yeah, let's see what he has to say. Remember to take all of this with a grain of bloody salt because we all know now at this point that this guy can't be trusted with what he says. But let's go for it. Right now, officially, they've talked about, as you've mentioned... Well, actually, let me read the question first. Besides being able to switch perspectives, do you know how else they plan to involve the gameplay? So, right now, officially, they've talked about, as you mentioned, the ability to switch between first and third person on the fly. And basically designing two different games alongside each other to accomplish this, as required big retooling to work with both. The new lighting shadow engine, hair engine from Pragmata. Additionally, we know the Stalker uses a new dynamic AI system they've done to behave uniquely and intentionally on the fly. So that sounds very much like Capcom's trying to do their own unique take on alien isolation with a Stalker enemy, which is kind of cool. I know a few people who did play the original demo did say, oh, this feels like alien isolation, like the Stalker enemy does feel very dynamic and very unique. So that's really, really cool. I'm hoping they do something really awesome with that. There's a few other innovations, some I know, but also sure I don't know all of them. A small handful I don't mind. Sharing, okay, let me say that properly. A small handful I don't mind sharing is they've been working hard to achieve having good performance on open level design areas like Raccoon City, along with vehicles to travel around it. The combat with Leon has seen huge innovations. Honestly, some Last of Us Part 2 isms, but also its own innovations. Okay, so he's pretty much saying that we're going to have these open world areas. Now, I don't think this is going to be a full-on open world game. I still do say that you're going to play as Grace in this opening segment or in this hospital setting. And eventually when you escape, it's going to be very much like Final Fantasy VII. You're going to come out of Midgard, or in this case, you're going to come out of the hospital, and then you're going to realize, holy crap, I'm in or near Raccoon City and the area. And it's going to become like this sort of open world-ish type game, but not open world, if that makes sense. It's going to be a very simple kind of open world. Enough that, as he says here, you're going to be able to drive a vehicle around it, which is funny here. I'll get to that back later. I think there's another post that sort of hints at this. I'll get to that later. But yeah, the combat is going to be similar to Last of Us 2. Now, we know that Last of Us 1 was pretty much inspired by Resident Evil 4. I think the developers even themselves admitted that. So now it's sort of like taking back what those guys have done. I don't like Last of Us 2 as a game. I like, as a story narrative, I don't like it. But as a piece of gameplay, it was fine. Even though I feel like it wasn't very new. Like, it wasn't doing anything new with the gameplay. A lot of people say, oh no, it's great. The gameplay's good. I'm just saying, it didn't do anything new. I mean, when you compare it to the stuff you can do in Last of Us 2, you had games like Metal Gear Solid 4 already doing a lot of that kind of gameplay. Does that make sense? Like Last of Us 2 wasn't doing anything new or groundbreaking with the gameplay. Like, it's years behind what other games already did and were doing. So, yeah, for me, it's nothing really special, like, sorry to say. But yeah, curious to see where this goes next. There's been effort to provide more environmental physics systems and interactivity of greater segments where she has to work with the environment more and balance light and darkness. And more I won't say, and more I don't know, but they have a lot more to reveal. Okay, so yeah, it makes a lot of sense for Capcom to have a lot of these multiple events if they got a lot of stuff to reveal when it comes to this game. Because like if it does have open world segments and it's got driving and that, you gotta reveal that in the marketing. If Leon's in it and he's in his parts are like very innovative and action packed but also very different, you gotta reveal that. If you've got these segments potentially where you're playing as different characters, not just Grace and Leon, you sort of got a hint or reveal that. And obviously trailers for the villains and the story and teasing and setting all that up. So yeah, I can see Capcom doing multiple trailers for this game if there's so much in it in that short amount of time, because they only got till February to reveal all of this, to like talk about it and expand on it. Like, so they got a lot of work cut out for them in terms of the marketing. So yeah. And then Dusk posted this image, Resident Evil Requiem out of context. So we got this ice cream cone, sad face, we got this old dude, we got this poster for a trailer with Mama, I've never seen that, and then we got a poster for Resident Evil Extinction with Mila Jovovich driving a bike. So the only thing I can take from this is the bike part. The only thing I can get from this is that you're going to be playing as Leon and he's going to be driving a bike through these areas. So yeah, this for me is very funny because I remember back when Resident Evil 5 was announced and it was coming out. I remember like an early magazine I read where they said that you'd be able to play the game, right? And it would be like, it would have these open big areas and you'd be able to drive a bike playing as Chris. I swear there was this was like one of the first things they revealed, and I think this was the same magazine where they said that it had the heat system as well. Like you could hallucinate when you're like getting way too hot, and then you have to like find areas of water and drink that to sort of get the meter down. Obviously, none of that stuff ever made it into the final version of the game. But it's very curious that you'd be able to drive like a bike, because Leon makes the most sense. We've seen him drive bikes before. It's sort of like Chris piloting a jet, right? It's his thing, and with Leon, like the most common vehicle that he'd be probably cool at using is a bike. So yeah, I can definitely see this being a thing, which is kind of cool. I don't mind that. I'm just hoping this isn't like a full-fledged open world game. Like I'm hoping this is balanced. Like it's not like a fetch quest. You gotta go here and collect all of this. You gotta go here and collect all of this. I want it to be a simple mechanic in a simple game, you know? The rest of this stuff I can't really explain. I don't know, so I'm not familiar with it. Oh well. Okay. I thought a Zero would be out sooner than that. So Dusk replies, originally, like years ago, RE9 was supposed to come out in 2024 and RE0 in 2025. I can believe that. But both suffered delays they needed. RE0 got some form of reboot in dev late last year as far as I know. Not unusual for RE games. Right now, don't know the scale of the reboot, big or small. So this is very interesting if RE0 indeed has been rebooted, because Dusk has been saying that RE0 has been developed by the RE3 team, while the main team, who done RE2, 4 and I think 7 and 8, have been doing Code Veronica. Now, I don't mind this. I think this is the smart thing to do. Plus, Zero for me is one of the most smallest games with like bare bones elements to it. So if you've got the side team working on it, that's fine. I know a lot of people are going to complain going, oh, they're going to ruin it. Here's the thing. There's nothing really to ruin. RE0 is a shit game. I'm just going to say this right now. I'm not a fan of RE0. I've never liked it. The story is trash. For a prequel game, it's very, very bad. You're doing this prequel, right? That's supposed to like focus before the events of the mansion incident, and therefore you have the opportunity to develop Bravo Team. You have the opportunity to do something with these characters so that we feel sorry for them, so we feel something that when we get to RE1, we'll be like, oh man, I can't believe these guys are dead now. Like I really like them. And the game didn't do that. Instead, it gave us this original story with Rebecca and Billy, and it was just nonsense, in my opinion. And the whole James Marcus stuff, like, and the leeches and that, like, I'm not really a fan of that. It was basically Alexia 2.0. It's just, instead of ants, it was leeches. And I get they're trying to give this backstory to the T-Virus and that, but, like, you could have done it in a more simple way instead of doing this sort of half-assed plot that really doesn't go anywhere. Like it really, like you could easily skip Resident Evil 0 and it wouldn't affect the plot in any way. Like and Marcus will be mentioned in files anyway, so it's like that's all you really need to know. Like So yeah, for me, Zero is just a very terrible game. Like, if they revamp that and overhaul that, I don't mind it if it means that it will have better writing and better characters. My only hope and dream for RE0 is that it will include the Bravo team members as actual characters and we get some development with them. In this case, Kenneth, Forrest, and Rico, and obviously Richard as well. Obviously, Kevin and Dewey die early on, but Kenneth and Forrest, I would like to see some development with, especially Rico as well. Like, we got a little bit of development with Richard in the remake for Resident Evil 1, fine. But I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more. I want this game to sort of feel like the Halo Reach equivalent of Resident Evil. You've got these characters that, end up saving the world, but then they die in the next game because, yeah, of the injuries or wounds and the exhaustion. Like, I want to see that. But yeah, moving on. Since Code Veronica could be launched in 2027 to 2028, which RE games you think could be launched between 2028 and 2030? A new RE game, Zero, RE1 remake? Keep in mind, Resident Evil games get rebooted and delayed all the time. Hell, RE9 about to come out was delayed twice eternally, not publicly. They save date announcements for when they're certain. But 2028 should be either Zero or Code Veronica, whichever order they release. In 2029 and 2030 should be another new Resident Evil game releasing, not a remake and not a spin-off, but a big budget affair. After that, I don't know at present. Okay, interesting. So Resident Evil 0 or Code Veronica could be coming out in 2027 to 2028. I think 0 will be first. Honestly, I don't know. I feel like the dates could change because Capcom tends to like to do gold editions for their Resident Evil games. When it comes to like the main numbered titles and that. So, 7 got one, 8 got one. Surprisingly, 4 Remake got one. Okay, fair enough. But I could easily see 9 getting one as well, and that would be released in 2027. So then, would they bother releasing a game in there? I think if they're gonna do that, I think the game they will release in 2027 will be 0. I think it'll be 0 because it's the smaller title. It'll make sense to release the side game first, and then they release their next big main game, which is going to be Code Veronica, in 2028. I think that would make sense. And then he's saying that we're going to get another game in 2029 or 2030, which should be another Resident Evil game releasing, but not a remake and not a spin-off. I think we're going to get RE1 remake. I think we will. It's not going to be RE5 because he's saying it's not a remake. So I think this will be Resident Evil 10. Or it will be the next big numbered Resident Evil game. And let me see, okay? Like, Capcom usually likes to release these games between every 4 years. Now it's been 5 years between 8 and 9. It's been 5 years now. I think by the time it releases, it'll be 5 years. But I like to think Capcom tries to stick to that released gap. Do you know what I mean? Of 4 years. So I could see this being the next big main title Resident Evil game coming out. So fingers crossed. Okay, this is a big spoiler, obviously. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't know if this is true or not. Like I said, I wouldn't believe a lot of the stuff Dusk says when it comes to spoilers. But let's read this. I think people will figure this out next week with the Gamescom stuff and preview embargo the next day, if I had to guess, since not really a way to show off more of RE9 while hiding it. But yes, the giant monster woman is Elisa, as many guessed, who is a recurring threat to Grace. Okay, so you straight up just spoiled this, which I don't mind. We've all been saying, if you know shit, then actually spoil us and tell us. But here's the thing, this feels like such an obvious bloody spoiler. Like, from day one, right? From day one, people predicted that the giant monster was either going to be Lisa Trevor, it was either going to be Elisa, or it was going to be a new character or creature. So everyone pretty much predicted this could potentially be Elisa. It's nothing new. Now, he's saying that this is something that's going to be revealed at the Gamescom. Like, okay, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, the Lisa Trevor stuff, like, for me, was kind of a hopium in terms of, if Lisa Trevor's in this, then surely they'll bring back a character that had, like, that was threatened by her in the previous games. In this case, it would have either been Jill, Chris, or Barry. Like, that was kind of the hope, right? But it being Elisa makes more sense thematic-wise and story-wise. Like, Elisa, Grace goes in there to find her mother, to find out what happened, and then she discovers, oh crap, it's this creature that's chasing me is my mother. Like, she is alive, but she's also dead, sort of, in a way. And maybe they could do a similar story to what they did with Manuela in Dark Side Chronicles with the Operation Javier storyline. You got the mutated mother chasing the door, but she's protecting her or helping her. In this case, you got the mother chasing the door and trying to kill her and eat her and defeat her and that. And maybe something happens at the end and the creature gains its humanity or intelligence and realizes, oh, this is my door, I need to protect her or something. But the way Dusk makes it sound, it's like this is like an early reveal. Yeah, like this isn't really a spoiler, by the way. Grace literally figures it out shortly after meeting the monster for the first time. She is an FBI technical analyst and recognizes her own mother. She just hates the implications of that and doesn't at first want to believe it, but quickly does. So it's kind of weird because you had people play the demo, and from what they played, there was no mention of story details where Grace discovers that this creature is her mother. So maybe this is something that happens after that demo segment. And as you go further into that whole segment that the demo takes place, Grace learns the truth very early on, which is kind of surprising because usually a reveal like this is kept for like the very end of the game, sort of like a last twist. You get towards the end and you realize, oh my god, this thing was my mother the whole time. But it seems Capcom is going to have this be like again, if Dusk is telling the truth here. If he's not, we're going to be finding out very, very shortly in the next few days whether he's bullshitting us. But if this is, in fact, an early reveal, this is surprising, because then it means that what kind of other twists can we expect in this game then, if this is something that's going to be revealed very early on. But here's the thing, right? Dusk is giving us a spoiler to something that seems very obvious, that a lot of people online predicted. So for me, this isn't like, even he says it's not really a spoiler. I don't consider this a big spoiler. It's like, oh, no shit, like, you're telling us something that everyone predicted for the most part. Yeah, this is as bad as the twist in RE5 with the Plague Doctor and you finding out, oh, it's Jill. Like, do you know what I mean? It feels like such an obvious thing to spoil. And that's one of the issues I'm having with this. It's like he's not giving us, like, actual meat to chew on. He's given us something that's very obvious that anyone could have said, which a lot of people actually did say. So it's like, yeah, you're not telling us anything new here, dude. Like, give us actual spoilers that we didn't expect or know about. Moving on. I know it's not related to this at all, but I am curious, how much do you know about RE9's plot? Do you know just little bits here and there, or do you mostly have an idea of the full story? Not asking you to share full details if you do, just curious. As of this moment, I know who all the characters in the first trailer are, who the stalker monster is, who the hooded figure is, who the shadowy figures who pop up briefly are. I know a framing device the story uses in a huge way that I haven't seen anyone guess yet. I know who the playable characters are. I know roughly their role in the story, but not precisely where their stories go. I know what the main virus infliction in this game is and what it does. I know why they need Grace's blood. I know a big way this all ties to Umbrella. I know external stuff surrounding the game, like how this is meant to be a conclusion game and what that entails, though I don't know the ending nor a lot of the story beats. That'd be a brief rundown of what I know of the plot at this moment. Okay, so he's saying he knows shit. Then tell us! This is the thing that always annoys me. If you know this stuff, tell us. It's not that hard to make a spoiler thread and go, hey guys, this is going to be a spoiler thread for RE9, and this is all the stuff here. Or you'll post it on these Discords, so I don't know, Capcom won't fucking take it off. If you know stuff, tell us. Like, it's kind of annoying, like, he's not giving us actual spoilers. Like, he's giving us stuff, like these little breadcrumbs that we've already suspected. Do you know what I mean? That's not a spoiler. Like, you telling me Alisa, that the monster is Alisa, is not a spoiler to me. It's like, oh, yeah, that was something I guessed myself. Like, tell us something we don't know. Will RE9 bring a conclusion to all the main storylines, including the events of RE7 and 8? Here is how it's been conveyed to me, and I've been saying this for 4 or 5 years now, actually, but I was updated on this as recent as a couple of months ago. Resident Evil 9, they plan to make the last numbered RE game. RE9 is a conclusion chapter as well as new beginnings for RE. It will be the end on the timeline, everything to do with Umbrella, Raccoon City, its legacy and long history, and freedom up to make major changes to the franchise. Titles before that point will probably still be made referencing these things, but RE9 is the conclusion of everything that started with RE1, RE2, and RE0 if you want to include it. The series plans to move to new characters, stories, new types of horror stories without being tied down by the series history. Multiple times, the teams have ran into restrictions by having to tie every single thing to Umbrella, viruses, Raccoon City, etc. So doing one last big hurrah to tackle and bookend various hanging plot threads and celebrate the series' 30 long year history while also concluding it so they can move on to trying new things. Also destroy certain things like the timeline always progressing without actual year. That made sense when RE games took 1.5 to 3 years to make, but it leads to people wanting to know what's been up with these character when the game takes 5 to 9 years to make, gives them a chance to go back and fill gaps in the timeline if they want with big budget games. They could go back and make a medieval, actually something they wanted to do with RE8 or whatever Resident Evil game if they wanted. Want to do fresher things with the series and change it up. So yeah, I get that. If this is true, I get that. At the same time, I don't believe RE9 is going to be the last numbered title. Why? Because they just made their recent engine, and it's called the Rex engine. And the next RE game, logically, realistically, would be called RE10, or in this case, REX. So I 100% think they're going to do that. It's just very symbolic. If this game is an end to the Raccoon City Umbrella storyline, then it would make, and concludes Leon's story, by the way, like he's been saying for a while, it would make sense then for RE10 to be the conclusion for Chris and Jill's characters, and the connections plot, and the the BSA plot and that. So I don't see them like ending a lot of storylines like this. Like, you still got the Alex Wesker stuff as well to deal with, so what about that? That's a big plot line as well. So I'm very curious what this game's going to do story-wise, but I think it's going to be very similar to like RE4 or even RE6, and it's just going to be a new story that's going to tie back to all this past stuff, and it's going to retcon a lot of stuff, and you're like, oh my god, wow, you know, stuff like that. And then the next game we get after that is going to be, you know, the game that a lot of people actually want to see story-wise, in terms of, okay, we're going to conclude the BSA and the connections plot, because I don't see that being concluded here. I don't. Moving on. I hope that Capcom will stop a little bit with the remakes and start to do side games again, like Revelations. I think Capcom have had a lot of issues with side content in RE, lots of failed attempts, scrap stuff. After Resident Evil Requiem, I've heard they want to move away from numbers. I hear part of that is due to timeline stuff actually. RE games having a real world ongoing timeline made sense when these games took 1.5 to 3 years to make, but now that they take 5 to it creates major gaps. So I think they want to erase main side games and more openly just do big budget games without each needing to be a direct sequel. Okay, fine, I guess. It's you know, it's kind of fair to allow the developers wanting to do their own thing and that, but at least make it good and don't leave it on cliffhangers, for Christ's sake. Bonus. I think fans will accept it anyway, since they probably are curious of what various characters were up to during various periods of time. I think Capcom has been slowly prepping people for this change between Shadows of Rose time skip, Infinite Darkness going back, etc, etc. That's not really prepping anyone. Like the CGI movies were always this sort of thing used to bring old characters back and tell like very specific stories and that with other characters and that, like, and fill the gaps between things. So that's nothing new, and Shadows of Rose was an epilogue done to tie up the Winter storyline and Rose's storyline. That's not like, oh yeah, we're prepping people to like tell these stories, and that's not really a prep. That just feels like a logical thing to do. We've already had, like, the Revelations games were already filling gaps in between that. Like, do you know what I mean? So this is kind of bullshit stuff that he's saying here. He's saying stuff that Capcom have already been doing, or were doing at the time. And to be fair, when it comes to like side content stuff and that, I can see the reason Capcom not doing that at the moment is because the remakes have replaced that. Like, the remakes have taken over the side game stuff. You know, we used to get side games between main numbered Resident Evil games, you know, like Dark Side Chronicles, Umbrella Chronicles, Revelations, Dead Aim, Survivor, Outbreak, etc, etc. Those have been replaced by the remakes now. We're getting remakes now instead of those games. So I feel like until Capcom finishes remaking pretty much all the games they want to remake, in this case, I'm assuming we're getting Zero and Code Veronica. I'm assuming we're going to get another one remake to tie the story to it a bit better, to tie it all together, and RE5 remake, and then I think they're going to do Revelations 1 and 2 remake as well, and then we'll get Resident Evil 6 remake. So that's potentially 7 remakes they can do right now. And then I do think they should remake the Outbreak games, because I feel like those are now important, what with RE9 coming out. So that's potentially another 9 remakes they could be doing. There's no point doing Dead Aim or Survivor, I feel like, because those characters have never come back. The games have never really referenced them. With the occasion of RE0's intro where it referenced the island from Survivor, I don't think it's that necessary to do those games or bring those characters back, unless you're gonna like remake those and like do them really, really big budget and that, and do something completely different with them. But I just don't see the need. I feel like those specific games that I've mentioned, you should remake instead. But yeah, moving on. No numbered titles, no more might be bad for the series, and it being the final game is scary for me, not gonna lie. What path are they even going? It has to be a reboot, Imo. They can't just continue the stories of characters with non-numbered titles. So Resident Evil dropping numbers after RE9 isn't a bad thing, and even makes some sense, I'd argue. This is a longer topic, but after the series planner died after Code Veronica, Resident Evil titles have had a lot of creative freedom from the directors and producers and so on. Oh yeah, this is so I only found out, like, I think early this year that the series had this one dude that was planning everything out, and once they passed away after Code Veronica, the series pretty much went to whack with the storytelling, which is one of the reasons why I think Resident Evil 4 did its own thing, and then the plot went back with RE5, and then they did their own thing with Revelations, and then they did their own thing again with RE6, but then we got Revelations 2, which went back to the plot that the loose ends with RE5, and then we ended up getting new stuff with RE7, and then they went back to it with RE8, and then etc, etc. So it's been a very big mess when it comes to, like, the storylines fitting together. But yeah, it makes sense when the planner dies, things just sort of went like haywire. Have a lot of creative freedom from directors and producers to sort of be whatever story they want to tell for the title. Resident Evil hasn't really had a super focused story, since the staff behind one game couldn't guarantee that the staff behind the next game would want to carry on whatever plot threads were planned by them. The series has grown a lot in audience and more consistent teams since the RE Engine era started, and the team has a lot of fun ideas for Resident Evil, but in a way, it's creatively limited to always come back to the series' own legacy. Everything in a way is restrained to have to be related to Umbrella and Oswald's ambitions, or BSA have to respond to a BOW outbreak with Pacific scale, etc, etc. A lot of what they experiment with is well received, like Jack Baker and his family setup is well received, or the baby moment from RE8. But in a way, these elements are held back because the villains always have to be wrapped up by the end, with no real guarantee that it will be picked back up on, or they need to take the time to tie everything that's happening back to the series' legacy, fear of what fans might think if they go too radically different or in some bold direction that can't be tied back to all of that, or doesn't work with how the series is currently set up. Plus, various things left hanging people want follow-ups on can wait for years or expect it due to legacy reasons. But there's new kinds of horror and creative stories many on the team want to tell in the Resident Evil universe, but also acknowledge there's a lot of fans want to see. So while this won't encompass everything, RE9 to my knowledge is an effort to simultaneously try something boldly new, while also focused on a lot of things fans would want to see. As I've described it before, to include various things fans have wanted, while also set new beginnings to allow them to experiment and be freer to do new sorts of horror stories. And I think part of the reason they think Resident Evil 9 may be the last properly numbered title is to indicate it's part of the story those numbered titles tell, but move on to telling new stories with history and characters to perform when they want to, rather than it be a strict requirement that's always hanging over the series' head that restricts how far it can go to tell something more daring or new. I don't expect it'll be like a reboot. I think the team just wants to try a series conclusion chapter and open it up for new takes. Okay, that makes sense. I still say we're going to get RE10 with the Rex engine. I think if they're not using the Rex engine now for these games specifically, it'll be for RE10. That'll be the game they use it for. That or a Dino Crisis remake, because come on, Rex engine. It's got two bloody meanings in there. Like, it's too perfect for Capcom not to have one of those games be the first one and use the engine on. But yeah, this kind of also makes sense when he mentions like the numbered titles, like a 9 will be a conclusion to all the numbered titles and that. Because Revelations 2 is not a numbered title. That was technically sort of a spin-off main entry game, so I guess they wouldn't bring Natalia or Alex back in that. Really, that's the only story I want a conclusion on, to be honest. Like, that's the main one I want a conclusion on, followed by the connections and the BSA. But like I said, I'm not expecting that until RE10 to do it on. So yeah, moving on. Without giving much away, since you know a bit of Ori's story, which Ori game is closest to its plotline? Funny enough, I think Capcom themselves have already sort of answered this themselves, but the Revelations games is what I'm most reminded of. Resident Evil Requiem in several ways reminds me of the Revelations games, just really high budget and more ambitious, I suppose. I mean, this is pretty bloody obvious, isn't it? You've got the director of Revelations 1 and 7 doing 9. Like, of course it's going to be similar to Revelations in a way, like... And Resident Evil 4 Remake was already similar to Revelations 2, so... This isn't anything new, like, this is pretty logical. As more of the game is... as more of the game is revealed, I'm 100% sure some other Resident Evil diehards will have the same that's oddly like the Revelations game's reaction thoughts on several occasions. Yeah, that's logical. That's nothing like Dusk, can you tell us how many characters will be playable? I imagine it will be 4, just like in Revelations, right? And Dusk replies that it's Leon and Grace and little Elisa, but that's really it. So, yeah, I mean, if it's very similar to RE7, then yeah, it's pretty obvious how many characters you're going to play as. Like, Grace is going to be the main character, obviously. Leon is going to probably be the Mia of that game. Or in this case, if it's similar to Revelations, then then Leon is going to be the Chris slash Keith slash Parker of the game, where you're going to play as the action hero, and that's going to be that character. Leon's going to be that character. Hopefully they do a bit more with that, like give it like a bit more depth, instead of just like, oh, you're playing as a character and that's it, like that's all you can do. You can only move and shoot and that, like no puzzles, no infantry, etc, etc. I want a bit more depth to that if we're going to play as Leon. A little Elisa, yeah, I think, again, this is something everyone predicted. Like, the moment we saw Elisa in the trailer as well, it's like, oh yeah, this is going to be the new Clancy of the game. She's probably going to, like, we're probably going to, like, play as her in little flashbacks and that, or tapes or whatever, like, so yeah, that feels obvious. If Leon is in this, and it's meant to be his final game as well, I do think Ada's going to pop up, in which case Ada's probably going to be the DLC character, so she's probably going to be the Chris of this game, in my opinion, like, so, yeah. Hopefully that doesn't mean it's going to be like a last-minute reveal. Hopefully it's going to be a case of she's going to be popping up here and there in the background, and then we're going to get a DLC, and we're going to play her game, and we're going to see what she was doing behind the background and helping Leon on that, so, yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Okay, I think people will figure this out. So, okay, so you already said this, and then someone else replied, the hag BOW is Elisa. Damn, that's sad. I feel bad for Grace. Is the hooded man Nikolai? And then Dusk replied, it's not him. It is a new character with a connection to the past, is all I'll say. I got more filled on RE9 stuff in the last few weeks. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all he had to say. So, it's funny he's saying this, because only a few weeks ago he was doing this whole thread explaining why the hooded man could be Nikolai. And now it's like, oh, it's not Nikolai. It's a new character. So I guess we can put that mystery to the rest in terms of who is the hooded man. I kind of did want it to be Nikolai, but it makes sense why it wouldn't be. Because if Jill or Carlos aren't in this game, it doesn't make sense to bring this random character back and tie to that. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much. I think this, if he's telling the truth, this pretty much confirms that Joe is not in this game. So we can put that on the downside now. Like, we can put that on a close and focus on what's important, in that this is going to be a Leon game and Grace is going to be our new heroine. Hopefully Ada is in this. Hopefully she is. Hopefully there's more tie-ins to the legacy of Umbrella and Raccoon City with who the villains are. But yeah, I'm very curious what they're doing with this. Very curious. I don't mind new stuff. I just want it to be good, you know? So yeah, do we believe what Dusk has to say? He's saying that he's only recently got a lot of information about RE9. I read something on another board where someone pretty much replied saying that Dusk and Andy have pretty much the same source apparently. And that even Andy has defended Dusk Golem recently. So it makes me wonder, like, why is it that when it comes to these sources, one is sort of very right and one is so far off or very late when they post it? So I kind of feel like, if this is true, then it makes me feel like Dusk only gets these spoilers when the game, or when we're about to get a reveal for this game, and that's when his source comes out and gives him legit info. Everything he says after the initial reveal, I would say is BS, because it's him just adding his own BS to it and trying to act like relevant, and in reality, you know, he's saying a lot of wrong stuff that's not true, until we get closer to another reveal event, in which case, okay, this is probably what he's saying is legit. But yeah, I don't know how to, like I said, you gotta take all of this with a grain of salt. We're gonna find out in a few days whether the Allison stuff is true or not. I do think it is legit, because, like, yeah, if Grace and Leon and maybe 8 are like the only characters in the returning characters in this game, and Elisa, it makes sense that the creature is gonna be Elisa. That just feels bloody obvious. But it makes me wonder who, like, the main villain is and who the hooded guy is. Like, if the hooded guy is not a returning character, then what's his deal? How does he tie in? And who is the main villain? Is it Spencer, or is it Brandon Bailey? Are we gonna get a connection to the connections? And is this gonna set up maybe RE10 with Chris and Jill perhaps? I don't know. I don't know what to think. I guess we'll find out soon enough. But yeah, guys, this was a pretty long video. I just wanted to get all of this crap out of the way. And yeah, we're gonna find out very soon. Today's the 16th, and we only got, what, 3 more days to go. So yeah, 3 more days to go, guys, until the opening night live show of Gamescon. Can't wait. I hope we do get a demo, actually, but Maybe that'll be a bit too soon. We'll see. Alright, guys, I hope you like this. Remember to like and subscribe, guys. And yeah, I shall see you when I shall see you. Hopefully the audio is a bit better here than my last videos. Take care and bye, guys. Take care and bye.